Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You guys sent in some really interesting stuff uh, this week, and I think this one's really going to get us thinking.
Yeah, this one is a doozy.
It is, it's a doozy. All right, so this one comes from Reddit, and it's basically about this woman who's like really struggling
Hmm.
with intimacy in her relationship, and she's been with this guy for 5 years.
5 years, that's a significant chunk of time.
Yeah, and they've been living together the whole time too.
Wow, so really embedded in each other's lives.
Exactly. And she's saying that things were amazing, like in the beginning.
The honeymoon phase.
Yeah, totally. And then things started to like fizzle out, especially in the intimacy department.
That's so common though, isn't it? Like, how do you keep that spark alive after years of being together?
Right. That's the million-dollar question. And in this case, it seems like the intimacy is like basically non-existent.
Oh, wow. So she's feeling neglected.
Yeah, and she feels like more of a roommate than like an actual partner.
Ouch. Yeah, that's gotta hurt.
And get this, to make matters worse, he bought her an engagement ring back in 2023.
Wait, so he bought the ring but hasn't proposed?
Yeah, like what's the deal with that?
That's so strange. Like, is he waiting for the perfect moment or is he having second thoughts?
I know, right?
I
It's so confusing. And then on top of all of that, she found like nude photos of his ex on his Google Drive.
No way,
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah, from like 6 years
Oh
ago.
my God, that's like a whole other level of messed up.
Right? Talk about adding insult to injury.
I can't even imagine how betrayed and insecure she must feel.
Oh, absolutely. She's like totally heartbroken and she's tried talking to him about it, telling him how she feels so lonely.
And what did he say?
Well, basically he like blames her. He says she doesn't give him enough random blowjobs.
Seriously.
I know, right? And he even went as far as to say that like intimacy is off the table unless she gives him a blowjob first.
That is so not okay. Framing intimacy as like a transaction like that is so disrespectful.
I know. It's like he's totally reducing her to like some kind of vending machine.
It's dehumanizing.
Yeah, exactly. And to make matters even worse, she's the one who does all the cooking and cleaning and shopping.
So she's like his maid and not his partner.
Pretty much it's like this total imbalance in the relationship,
Yeah. Huge red flags. Like, this is not a healthy dynamic at all.
So anyway, she took to Reddit to like share her story and ask for advice. And oh my God, the internet did not disappoint.
Oh, I bet there were some fiery responses.
You better believe it. There was everything from people saying dump him immediately to maybe there are like underlying issues you need to explore together.
That's the internet for you. Always a mixed bag of opinions.
Yeah. But it's interesting though, right? To see like how differently people view this whole situation.
It really highlights the complexity of relationships and how there's no easy answer when it comes to matters of the heart.
So let's like dive into some of these Reddit responses and see what we can learn from the wisdom of the crowd.
It's like before we even get to the advice,
Yeah.
We have to like really try to understand where she's coming from,
Yeah.
like put ourselves in her shoes.
Totally. Like she's feeling so insecure and even disgusted with herself.
Ugh, it's awful.
She's like questioning her attractiveness, like if she's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the worst part. Like, this lack of intimacy has left her feeling completely unloved.
And lonely.
So lonely, especially because she moved away from her entire support system to be with this guy.
Yeah. She's in a new city, no friends or family nearby.
So he's like her only source of connection.
Exactly. And then to top it all off, she finds these pictures.
Right. The photos,
So
like, come on.
It's like a punch in the gut.
Yeah. And she even said that she doesn't believe him when he says he had no idea those photos were still on his Google Drive.
Well, yeah. I mean, who would believe that?
Right. It's like, come on.
That's a major breach of trust.
Yeah. And it just makes her question everything,
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
it makes her doubt his honesty, his feelings for her.
Right. And this whole situation, it really makes me think about those attachment styles we talk about in psychology. Oh, yeah, totally. Like, this is a classic example of how insecure attachment can play out in a relationship.
Can you, like, break that down for us a bit?
Sure. So basically, insecure attachment styles often stem from childhood experiences,
Right.
and they can really impact how we approach relationships later in life.
Right.
So in this case, the woman's insecurity and anxiety might be coming from an insecure attachment style,
Makes sense.
which makes her super sensitive to any perceived threat to the relationship.
Like the lack of intimacy and the photos.
Exactly. It's like she's constantly seeking reassurance and validation.
Which she's not getting from him.
Nope. And when those needs aren't met, it can create this vicious cycle.
Of insecurity.
Insecurity, resentment, communication breakdowns, the whole shebang.
It's like a catch-22, isn't
Yeah.
it? The less reassurance she gets, the more insecure she feels, and the more she seeks it out, the more he withdraws.
Exactly. It's this awful dance they're stuck in, and that's where communication is so crucial.
But how do you even communicate when one person is shutting down and like resorting to these transactional demands?
Right. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's tough, but it starts with recognizing the patterns and being willing to change.
I guess so.
They might even need some professional help, like couples therapy.
Oh yeah, one of the Reddit users actually suggested that too.
Really?
Yeah, they said couples therapy can be like a game changer, especially when you're dealing with communication breakdowns and all that resentment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, therapy can provide that safe space for
Right.
them to really talk openly and work through these issues.
So we've got this woman in this like incredibly painful situation, feeling trapped and unsure what to do.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
She's heartbroken and she feels like she's wasting her time, in a relationship that's not fulfilling anymore.
Right, like she even said she feels like a roommate or a maid,
Yeah,
which is a huge red flag.
it's total imbalance.
It's like he's not even trying anymore.
Right, but then there's this tiny glimmer of hope.
The ring.
The ring.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Creates this push and pull.
Between her wanting a future with him and the reality of how messed up things are right now.
That's the sunk cost fallacy in action.
Sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, it's like that thing where we hold on to things we've invested time and energy in, even when they're not good for us anymore.
Oh, yeah, like staying in a bad movie just because you already paid for the ticket.
Exactly. And, it's terrible, but you've already committed, so you got to see it through.
But relationships are way more complicated than movies, right?
Way more. We're talking about lives intertwined, dreams shared.
Yeah, deep emotional connections.
Exactly. So it's natural to hesitate before walking away from something you've poured your heart into.
Especially after she moved across the country for this guy.
Right. She mentioned how daunting it would be to uproot her life again.
So she's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Pretty much.
Okay, so we've explored her side of things and all the emotional baggage that comes with it.
Right.
Now let's shift gears a bit and consider his behavior. We obviously only have her perspective, but I'm curious to get your take on, like, potential interpretations of his actions.
Of course. And it's important to remember that we can't diagnose him or anything without hearing his side.
Yeah, true.
But based on what we know, there are a few possibilities.
Like what?
Well, he could be struggling with stress, for example,
Okay.
or low libido,
Mm-hmm.
even an underlying medical condition that's affecting his sex drive.
Yeah, sometimes we jump to conclusions without considering the bigger picture.
Right. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Exactly.
And then there's the possibility of emotional unavailability or
Yeah.
even an addiction that's taking up all his time and energy.
Like zoning out on his phone or computer when he gets home from work.
It could be a sign, yeah.
Right.
Again, we don't want to jump to conclusions, but it's worth considering.
And then there's the whole blowjob for intimacy demand. It's hard to see that as anything other than disrespectful.
Totally. It's like he has this transactional view of intimacy.
Yeah. And one of the Reddit comments really hit home for me on this.
What did they say?
They said, it sounds like he's confusing intimacy with sex. They're not the same thing. Intimacy is about vulnerability, connection, emotional closeness. Sex can be a part of that, but it's not the whole picture.
That's such a great point.
Right.
It's like we need to expand our definition of intimacy.
Yeah.
It's not just about the physical stuff.
Right. It's about the little things, the everyday gestures.
The shared laughter, the inside jokes,
To deep conversation.
feeling seen and heard by your partner.
So we've got this complex web of factors at play. Her insecurity, his disengagement, the communication breakdown.
Right, and now it's time to see what the internet has to say about it.
Let's dive into those Reddit responses. All right, so we've got mountains of advice here from Reddit, everything from breakup to, like, go to therapy.
It's wild, right? Like how many different perspectives you get from one post.
Totally proves how there's no right answer when it comes to this stuff.
Nope, every relationship is unique.
So what were some of the big themes that stood out to you in the advice?
Well, a lot of people were saying she needs to put herself first.
Okay.
Whether that means breaking up or trying to work things out. The message was you deserve to be with someone who values you.
Yeah, it's so easy to lose sight of that when you're in the middle of it all.
Totally. You get so caught up in trying to fix things
Exactly.
that you forget about what you actually need.
So self-awareness and self-love.
Huge. Those are key.
And a bunch of people were also talking about boundaries and communication.
Yeah, setting clear expectations.
Right. One commenter even said she should sit down with her boyfriend and be like, this is what I need. This is what I'm not okay with.
It all comes back to that mutual respect and compromise.
Like you can't have a healthy relationship without it.
Exactly. It takes two to tango.
And a lot of the Redditors were saying She should try to figure out if there are any deeper issues at play.
Yeah, like stress, depression, maybe even a medical condition.
It's like treating the symptoms without addressing the root cause.
Exactly. You got to look at the whole picture.
So we've got all this advice. Break up, dig deeper, communicate better. It's a lot.
It is. And ultimately, it's her decision what to do.
She's the one who has to live with the consequences.
Yeah, but
But
exactly.
at least she knows she's not alone in this.
Right. So many people go through similar stuff in their relationships,
Reaching out for support can make a world of difference.
whether it's therapy or friends and family.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what are like the biggest takeaways for our listeners?
Communication. Communication.
That's like the foundation of any healthy relationship.
It's got to be open, honest, and respectful.
And both people have to be willing to listen and compromise.
Totally. And another big takeaway, self-love.
Yeah, know your worth, set boundaries.
Don't settle for less than you deserve.
Such good advice.
And speaking of good advice, if you're enjoying this deep dive and you want to hear more discussions like this,
Make sure to subscribe to Voices of the Soul podcast.
and for even more content, check out Shauna Pelage's YouTube channel.
She's got tons of great videos on relationships and personal growth.
So as you navigate your own relationships, remember to prioritize communication, self-love, and the courage to create a life you truly love.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. We hope this deep dive gave you some things to think about and maybe even a little inspiration.
Until next time.